In this tutorial, we shall create a standard ASP.NET Core 3.1 app, add basic localization and set the request culture. So let's flip over to Visual Studio now. Now on this Visual Studio, I will create a new project. ASP.NET Core Web Application. It's already highlighted, and then click on Next. And I will name this Localization Demo. And click on Create. So it's creating the project. So I will go with the highlighted template, that is on this create a new ASP.NET Core Web Application, a project template for creating a ASP.NET Core application with example ASP.NET Razor pages content. That is what my intention is. Okay, so I don't want Docker support or enable Razor runtime compilation. So create with all the default and without any authentication. Now in this project so created, I'll have to edit my startup file, startup class, and I'll have to add some directives which are using system.globalization. It's the first one, and then using another using statement, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.localization. Okay, and then finally another using statement, Microsoft.extensions.options. So these are the absolute must for creating and writing code for the globalization and localization. So localization is an opt-in feature. It is not enabled by default. Now, so we'll have to amend the configure services method. So where is my configure services method? This is my configure services method. So I'll have to further change this configure services method. So for brevity and saving time, I have added the code like this. So you can see services.configure request localization options. Now this specifies options for the request localization middleware. So this is a middleware pipeline. So it specifies option because we'll be adding that to the configure method soon, that middleware pipeline. And for the start, I am using a culture supported variable, which is initialized with new culture info for these 5 or 6 languages, new culture for English, French, Russian. This is German, Spanish, and English US. You can see that, there is a default request culture if it falls back to English US. You can change it to English Great Britain, and you can also include many other cultures. Okay, so that we can even add later on. Okay, you can add new cultures for your local languages or dialect. Okay, so, and this one is options.default request culture. It gets or sets the default culture to use for requests when a supported culture could not be determined. Okay, and then these are the supported culture. So options.supported culture is assigned cultures supported, that is these are the cultures. And supported UI cultures supported by the application. So UI culture is presently, I will not take it in any detail, we will come back to it in a later lecture. Okay, so these two are actually, basically you can see that these are the same for the time being at least. All right, and then we need to specify the languages that we plan to support in our application, which I just shown. Now cultures are represented in .NET by culture info class, which holds information about number and date formatting, calendars, writing systems, sort orders, and other locale specific matters. The overload of the culture info class constructor used here takes a string Okay, this is the language as a string. So there are a number of overloads for this culture info class. And in the example, a number of languages are supported, okay, including one subculture, that is US English. Okay, so now we'll make a change to the request localization middleware, which needs to be added in the configure method after app.routing. So after app.useRouting, I'll have to make another addition of code, which is another variable is created, localization option. So this is app.applicationServices.getService. So I am using this request localization options and getting the value here. And then I am using use request localization and passing on localized options. Okay, so I am basically setting the middleware. Okay, and then let's set the request culture. Now the request localization middleware makes use of component which are called request culture providers to determine the culture of the current request. There are 3 of these. They are added by default. The first one is accept headers request culture provider, which gets the culture from the browser's accept language header, and query string culture request culture provider, which gets the culture from the query string. And there is a final cookie request culture provider, which gets the culture from the cookie. Now request culture providers are called one after the other until one is able to determine the culture for the request. In the meantime, I will show how to create a view component that enables the user to set the culture for the current request. So the next step is to create a folder named models, and we'll add a class file switchCultureModel.cs. So let's create a folder model at the root of the project. Add new folder, call it models. Click on add class, and I will call this class switch culture model. Switch Alright, this is a simple class which will have now public class switch culture model. It will have a culture info return. So if you just have 2 public properties, prop tab. So instead of int, I will change it to culture info type. Culture info. And this is asking for potential fixes because it doesn't have this namespace, using system.globalization. All right, and I will name this property current UI culture. And then just copy it over. Another property over there, and this will be a list of culture info. This will be list. And I'll name it supported cultures. Supported cultures. Right. Next is to add a folder for creating the view component. You can name it anything, but by convention, I am just going to write the name view components within the root path. So add another folder, new folder, name it view components. And within this, I'll create another class add another class, and this will be known as switch culture view component. Okay, and then it needs a few more libraries. So here it needs using localization demo dot models and a few more which I will add. So I have now added all these required libraries: Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Builder, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Localization, and ASP.NET Core.MVC, and in Microsoft.Extension.Options. Now this namespace is localization demo.view components. So I will add the code to this class. So I have now completed this switch culture view component, which is derived from, which extends this view component class, a base class for view components, and this is switch culture view component. So this I have initialized a read-only object, read-only field of type iOptions, request localization options of localized options, and then this is the this dot localized options equals localization options. Okay, and then this is the invoke method, which is actually going to return a view which will come back again. Okay, now this is through the dependency injection that this localization options is set to the object that is injected to this constructor, right? So now I'll have to add a folder structure within views shared components. Okay. So once you are giving it a name like switch culture view component, you have to make a folder named switch culture, and that has to come on the project root under views shared and then components. So 3 folders I have to create. So I'll come back again. So I have now completed this folder structure. So you can see within this project root views shared components, and it has got finally a switch culture, which actually should exactly match the name of this view component, which is switch culture view component. So this is the anything other than the view component part will be the name of this folder, and they have to be in this order absolutely for this view component to be viewed on the browser. All right, that is Microsoft's requirement, and I can put a link on the Microsoft's relevant resource on the description. Okay, next I have to add a razor view, which can be called as default.cshtml, a razor view for the view part of it. So default.cshtml, default we have to create, and I will again paste some code over here to make it quick and don't spend tons of time in just writing the code in front of you. So my finished default.cshtml looks like this. The model is switch culture model. So I have actually given it a fully qualified name, localization demo.models.switch culture model. And on this form, there is a for each loop, is a razor component. So this is also looking for C# code with a @ symbol. Okay, so for each var culture in model.supported culture, this is a supported culture is within the model, which is the switch culture model. Okay, so switch culture model is got supported culture as well as current UI culture. So getting back to it, so it will give us you can visualize that this is a select. It's a select or the select list or a drop down list. Okay, so option value is, it will take culture.name, and selected will be displayed from model.currentUI culture.name, which is assigned culture.name. Okay, this is culture, this is the item that is retrieved, so culture.name. So, and this will be culture.displayName. And on this JavaScript, all you are doing is that, we are getting an element by ID, culture options, and putting an event listener on change even, and then on changing the select list item, it is going to submit a form which is got an ID switch culture. Okay, we'll come back to that. Now this switch culture element is this is the ID of the form. Okay, so basically this is looking for an element which is this form element that has got the same ID as this one, switch culture. So on change of the item, selected list, whatever you have it is changed, the form is automatically submitted. Now I have to do a couple of more things. Now I have to include the culture switcher view component, which I have just made within the layout page. So this is the layout page I have opened, and below this part, privacy, and this div before the closing div, this one, I have to make another line. I have to mark up, and this is a tag helper I am using. So VC, so that is view component, and I'll name it switch culture, and close the view component. Okay, so view component switch culture and end view component, or you can just make it self tagged. You can self closing tag, you can put it over here. So this will take care of the view component for the viewing purpose. All right, so that is under this div. Now in order to use a view component as a tag helper, I'll have to change the view imports.cshtml file also. So view imports.cshtml file. All I have to do is put another add tag helper. So at the rate of add tag helper, and this is again asterisk everything, and then this will be the assembly in which this is placed. This the view component is placed within this assembly localization demo. So this is the name of the assembly. So localization, this is the assembly name in which this view component is lying or placed. Okay, so add tag helper, asterisk, and then comma, then localization demo. Now let's before completing with the code on the index.cshtml file, let's build it for the time being to see everything is all right or not. So Control-Shift-B is the hotkey. So you can see that the build has succeeded. So far so good. Final step is to change the index.cshtml so that on this when it is browsed to the index page, you will get the required things that you want, required information. So this is the completed index.cshtml, and it uses ASP.NET Core.localization and view data. It is titles home page and welcome and all, everything is all right. And you can see here within this table, whose class is table culture table, it has got a number of rows, and in each rows the cells of the rows, the data within those rows is telling you something. Culture dot, it will give you the request culture.culture.name. So that is the display name, and then request culture.UI culture.name, and then the parent culture of that UI culture, and then the date time format, and then the currency and the number format. So let's run this application now. It's now ready. So I'll click on this IIS Express button to run this application. So now the application is running, and you have got a welcome screen, UI culture, and this is the English US actually. Now, when you first run the application, the culture request is set by the accept header cultures request provider. But when you select something from the drop down list, like French, okay, this is a French culture, and then again you change it to Russian. So this is the Russian culture. So when we use the drop down to select different cultures, the culture is set by the query string culture request provider. So this is the query string. Query string, it is supplying culture equals Russia. So this is German culture. So you can basically, within the culture info, if you change the, if you add more cultures, you can also use your own language wherever you are hailing from and show it on the drop down list. So that's the end of this lecture. Thank you.